Hey guys, good morning. Miss Clark here. I just wanted to touch base with you on the problems that you're going to be working on today. I would like to kind of take a step back and let's do some review, and then we want to talk about what you learned in Khan Academy on Thursday about adding fractions with tenths and hundredths. But first, let's take a little walk down memory lane. Let's talk about fractions and portions, fractional sizes first. If you think back when you first started learning about fractions, first of all, you learned about the top number, which represented your numerator, and the bottom number represented your denominator down on the bottom. Okay, the denominator tells you how many parts, and that I like to think about that as like the size of the parts, because the larger the denominator, the smaller my parts we're getting. The numerator tells you how many pieces you have out of those parts. So for example, if I had 2 slices of pizza, this would represent just one of those slices. The numerator tells me that. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about, let's think about cookies. Everybody likes cookies. Let's think about cookies for just a minute. So if it's just myself and a friend and we're going to split a cookie, I would get 1 out of the 2 pieces and my friend would get 1 out of the 2 pieces. We would get a pretty decent sized piece of cookie if you think about it. Okay? All right. What if we had to split that cookie between 4 of us? I want you to notice what happens. Once I start splitting my cookie between 4 people, now look how big my piece is. What happened? Well, I went from splitting with 2 people to 4 people, and it changed the size of my cookie. Okay? Let's say you split it with even more people. Let's say 10 people visit. And you had to split that one cookie with 10 people. What happened to the size of your piece? Exactly. Now that it was split between 10 people, I had a larger amount of people, but now I have a smaller piece. I had to share with more people. I need you to think about that, because when we start adding and subtracting fractions with tenths and hundredths, I need you to think about you can't really add 2 fractions together that have different size pieces. So, for example, if I have 3 tenths plus 1/100th, I need you to look at that for a second. The tenth pieces are different from the size of the 100th pieces. Think back to that cookie. So today what I'm going to show you to do is what they showed you in Khan Academy. I'm going to show you how to make these the same size pieces so that you can add this problem together. But first, you might want to take some notes. So I'm going to give you a second to get a sheet of paper. You can pause my video and then come right back. Okay, so now that you're back, let's talk about how are we going to make these denominators the same size pieces so that we can add this problem up together, both of these fractions together. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I need to think about whatever I do to the denominator in a fraction, I am going to have to do it to that numerator. Ms. Clark likes to tell little stories, and one of those little stories is that these are like siblings and they argue. If you do something to the bottom and you don't do the exact same thing to the top, you're going to have a crybaby on your hands. Okay? Just a little funny story to help you remember. So whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. And whatever change I make on top, I have to make that same exact change on the bottom. And let me show you what I mean by that. When I mean using the exact same change, I'm going to have to use a number to change this number and this number, but I have to use the same one. So, how am I going to make tenths into hundredths? Well, if you think about it, 10 times 10 equals 100. So if I were to multiply this 10 times 10, watch what happens. It's going to give me 100. Now remember my little story. I can't multiply the bottom by 10 and not multiply the top by 10. So let's multiply the top. 10 times the 3. What is 10 times 3? It is 30. Okay, now I've changed 3 tenths into 30 hundredths. Now I have the same size parts on the bottom. Okay, so we can go ahead and solve this problem. 30 plus 1 is 31. And what did we say about the bottom? Am I going to add these together? No. Just like when we were adding and subtracting fractions in the previous unit, they're the same size part, so I'm going to keep them the same size. They're still going to stay hundredths. So the answer to that is 31 hundredths. Okay? So what you want to write down in your notes is this. When you are adding tenths and hundredths, always change the tenths to hundredths. Okay? And the way you do that is by multiplying the number, the numerator on top, times 10, and the tenth on the bottom times 10. And that's essentially just going to add a 0 to the top and add a 0 to the bottom. Okay, let's try one more example, and you can copy this into your notes. All right. What if I did 4 tenths plus 3 hundredths? Okay. Now I'm not going to change the hundredths. I'm going to leave it the way it is. I'm going to make this tenth the same size part as this hundredth. And remember, the way that we did that is by multiplying the numerator and the denominator times 10. So if I come up here and I'm going to do the numerator first. What is 10 times 4? That equals 40. And what is 10 times 10? That gives me 100. I can now add these together. They have the same size denominator. Remember, your denominator is just going to stay the same. The size of the part will not change. You just add your numerators together. 40 plus 3 is 43, and we have 43 hundredths. Okay? All right. I hope this helps. If you have any question, please feel free to ask your teacher. We hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks for listening.